Hello and welcome to News Laundry. I have with me today Madhu Kishwar. Ma'am, you tell me how would you like to be introduced, because I have quite a long list of accomplishments of yours. You're a journalist, an activist.
I earn my living as an academic, as a professor at Center for the Study of Developing Societies. But my labor of love is with Manushi, an organization, a human rights, women's rights organization I founded way back in 1978.
Yeah, I've got a very old copy actually here of Manushi. And you also, just for our viewers, you've won the Chameli Devi Jain Award for the Best Woman Journalist of the Year in 1986. You have won an award, another journalism award in the year 1993 called the Haldi Ghati Award for Outstanding Journalist of the Year. But you don't introduce yourself as a journalist.
See, I chose not to earn my living through journalism, and even my work as editor of Manushi was labor of love. Okay. It never was something that gave me a source of income, and that's been a very deliberate choice. I don't want to write on command. I wish to write only when I have something of substance to say, not because I must write in order to get my paycheck. That's one reason why I chose. Similarly, even my work with Manushi has never been a source of income. It's been a relationship of giving, because my social activism also, I believe, in order to not become a life.
What is your source of income? Because you,
as I said, I'm a professor at Center for the Study of Developing Societies, and before I joined this place, which is a social science research center, I taught in a Delhi University college for many years.
I see.
So my livelihood has always come from my job as a
academic
teacher, as now a researcher, a professor.
What in your view is the role of a journalist and news in society?
It's obvious the most basic role of a journalist is to inform, and to inform as accurately and as dispassionately as you can. That's the first. Okay. So that the reader can easily distinguish between news and views.
Or viewer.
The reader or viewer in particular, yes. In particular, these days you're right. TV has become such an overwhelming and dominating presence, and TV news has become such a big menace.
Right. Menace, you say. Okay, we'll come to that later. So one is to inform dispassionately, and
that's the first. If you can't do that, then you have no business to be called a journalist. And people should be able to tell the difference between information that you're giving on the basis of observation of what's happening. That's one. And your opinion. Secondly, your political biases. You should be open about them.
True.
If you have certain preferences, well, then nobody should have to read between lines. Right. If you're honest about it.
I think that makes it's more honest for the viewer. If I mean, I can still watch someone whose political leanings I don't agree with, but at least I know that where it's coming from.
Yes.
I see. You don't think most journalists or media organizations are transparent about their political biases?
Far from it. Far from it. There is too much pretense of being non-partisan or being objective. But today, I think what we are witnessing by way of journalism, especially TV journalism, I think will be one of the most inglorious chapters in the history of Indian politics and journalism. I think this is a phase worse than the emergency, because during the emergency there was fear. There was actual fear. You could be arrested, your paper could be shut down, your Bijli supply could be cut, and much else. It was known that it was happening, it had happened to the tallest. Therefore, people had reason to be afraid. But even then, you know, it's well said that when the media was asked to merely bend, it crawled. I think what it's doing now is, for somebody like me, truly appalling. It's so partisan, and it's peddling lies and deceit at such a scale. And so...
Can you give me some specifics, like what?
I think the most brazen example, of course, but I can give 1,000 others. The most brazen example is, of course, the treatment of Gujarat. and of Narendra Modi.
Actually, I was coming to that. You you claim the media is responsible for demonizing Modi. They have, gone hammer and tongs and demonized Narendra Modi. Why do you say that?
You see for yourself from morning till night for the last 11 years, there's been one hate target, and that's Narendra Modi, in particular in Gujarat in general, and Gujaratis in general. We've been fed on this staple diet by the so-called liberal intelligentsia that Gujarat has become land of fusses, and the Hindus have really decided that...
Do you think this is limited to the English news media, or when you say media, that's across the board, Hindi news?
I think it's pretty much across the board, because
I will agree with you as far as the English media is concerned. He's the primary hate figure.
No, even Hindi media.
I don't know, because you spend a lot of time in Gujarat doing the research.
Gujarati media has not been very fair either.
I see. So
it's not been fair in reporting across the board, and Hindi media invariably takes its cue from the English media. And there is a certain brand.
That's because they have shared offices and the
not
CEOs
only shared offices, shared management, shared ownership, shared business interests.
So that's established. Hindi and English media demonize him. What about the Gujarati media?
It's also the Hindi media, I think, in some ways is less biased in some ways, because it has to appeal to a larger clientele. And it will give you a wider spectrum news, relatively wider spectrum news. I think the English media, especially TV, the spectrum of news it's covering is becoming frighteningly narrow. If you look at, even with print media, my complaint has always been that close to 70% of our news is from 10-20 kilometer radius of New Delhi. A large part of it is press releases by this or that ministry.
Sure.
And much of what we have been fed as investigative journalism have been leaks by rival politicians or disgruntled bureaucrats. Our news establishments rarely invest in investigative journalism.
Other than Anirudh Behel's Cobra post, they keep doing something or the other.
Yes, but that's, he's not even mainstream.
Correct. No, coming back to, I understand the point you're making, that it's very, like when we travel out of the city, people say...
But TV has become even more limited. Today, instead of news, all you have is
them demonizing and hammering Modi. That aspect, are you surprised by that? What I'm trying to say is that, let's say, what happened in 2002. It was the first riot of that scale that was... No, let me finish. Of that scale that was... transmitted as like the first televised war was Bush's first war, when dish antenna came in 1992 or 91, whenever it was. And so similarly, it was the first riot when television news came of age. So obviously it got a whole lot of coverage. Would that not happen no matter who?
All the more reason it should have been accurate coverage. For example, as someone who has covered 1984 personally. I was out on the streets from day one, doing relief work as well as investigative reporting for Manushi. I did cover Meerut, Malyana, Mumbai riots, Jammu riots, and various other conflict situations, including Kashmir. Now, the fact is that in no other riot have we seen army called in, mobilized, put into action within 20 hours of the first incident of violence, with the defense minister himself overseeing deployment. They had all the paraphernalia needed to make them functional, which is jeeps, mobile phones, maps, red flags, the entire, and magistrates to accompany each Paltan of the army. Whereas in all other riots we've seen either the army is not called, including in the recent Assam riots. 4 days the army is positioned right there in Assam. Right. In the case of Gujarat, the army had to be airlifted because they didn't have it, they couldn't withdraw it quickly from the border on account of Operation Parakram ongoing. Secondly, in police firing, a number of Hindus got killed. Tell me another riot, including 1984, including Bombay riots, including Meerut, Malyana, including any other that you can think of, where Hindu mobs have been fired at and hundreds got killed.
So your point is that he has been unfairly targeted because the coverage has been...
From day one.
Why do you think that is?
The manner in which Godhra incident itself, the burning down of car Sevaks, was handled, it was as if they asked for it.
Handled by who?
Media.
By the media?
Yeah, and certain people within the media then who...
Like who?
Including people like Teesta Setalvad. I mean, if you look at her writings of Godhra...
No, but what about the media? I mean, are you saying that those specific channels, like I know Rajdeep and Barkha were there on the ground, they are the face of the coverage of the riots, and a lot of people appreciate how they covered it.
A lot of people appreciate, and a lot of people are enraged because they're very partisan and getting increasingly so.
Why do you think that is? I mean, if you're saying that
I'm
across
saying
the board.
It was
is it
not
a class thing? Do you think it's a Hindi-English thing? Like,
yes,
I just want to move on to, let's say we establish that he has been demonized. I'm saying, why do you think that is? Why is everybody want to demonize this man?
For three reasons. Let me, it's loud thinking. Number one, I think BJP in general is treated as the cultural subalterns. You know, they are desi types. And
it's a language thing.
Language and culture. The entire Hindu ethos, Matao or Behno ka culture, and these guys are about hi friends type. You know, they're not comfortable even with that vocabulary, where Ganga is Mother Ganga, Ganga Mata, and you address audiences as Meri Adarniya Behno or Mata. You know how wildly they have responded to that. Culture is alien. The English media in particular, and the educated elite in India in general, is very culturally uprooted and almost aggressively hostile to indigenous cultural traditions, unless of course you know, they are Dalits and tribals which are distant. You don't have to really deal with them, somebody else really deals with them. So you romanticize this tribal culture, etc. Not in your daily dealings, not when they come to work with you as domestic servants.
But
and
when
drivers.
they're away, out
when they're
there.
away, yes, you can romanticize Dalit culture, and you
then
can
why is it that the...
And secondly, secondly, it's also the class thing. I think anybody who belongs to the South Delhi cocktail circuit can get away with murder and worse in this country. And that's why somebody like Rajiv Gandhi was treated with kid gloves, despite such major blunders and lapses to his credit. Not only
you think it had nothing to do with the fact that there was no television cameras out there? You think had 84 happened in 2002?
Had arrived, by the way, and by the time he sent...
there was just Doordarshan. What I'm trying to say is that if someone like him had overseen what he oversaw in 84 in 2002, you don't think he would have met the same fate as...
all the more reason. When you say television cameras, the same person, namely Narendra Modi, through the social media, is getting across to millions and emerging as the darling and hero of the masses.
Right.
From, as I said,
that's
from truck
that's
drivers.
social media.
No, but I'm saying it's very important. From elite school alumni, you know, IIT, IIM kids, to little school children, to truck drivers, to farmers in various states. I mean, I'm quite amazed how it has happened. It ought to have been object of a serious study. If anybody had the good sense, you can write 50 PhD theses on it.
How You're writing one, Modi Nama, right?
I'm trying to, and this is precisely what provoked my interest. How is it happening? I want to
ask you, why did you, I mean, I know you get extremely annoyed if someone calls it a campaign because you say it's a piece of research.
It is.
I've been told, and it's not you're not a Modi cheerleader, you're not campaigning for it.
Till very recently, I had never met Modi, I had never spoken to him. And to his credit, even after I had published 8 or 9 pieces, he never even picked up the phone to say hello to me, and I'm glad he didn't. We maintained a distance, I maintained a distance, and so did he. I don't know what were his reasons, but my reasons were very clear, which is that I wanted to understand him, good or bad,
as a piece of research, not as a person.
Work, through his colleagues, through his political colleagues, through his bureaucratic colleagues, through people in villages, through his contact with various groups of citizens. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I went about.
Why Modi Nama? Why we call it Modi Nama?
It just happened. I mean, you know, I mean,
like
why
Akbar
Manushi? Huh?
Yeah, actually I read about why Manushi. It's your interpretation of like Manushya is genderless.
It's the name I gave.
It's not Admi or Aurat.
But Akbar Nama is not supposed to be a Stutigan. It's supposed to be a description of the reign of Akbar.
I'm just saying that maybe the title also kind of positions it one, because Akbar Nama was, you know, commissioned by Akbar to one of his jewels of his kingdom. So
honestly, that didn't occur to me.
So
and
maybe it's not correctly positioned. Like, for example,
maybe I should change the name. And maybe if that's the
connotation of Akbar Nama is
that comes,
an ode to Akbar by one of Abul Fazl, which was one of his, you know.
You're right. Maybe that's a mistake, and I will definitely correct it, because I will be publishing a lot more, and it will come in the form of a book, and I'm open to correction. Maybe it was, you know, in the spur of the moment, I didn't even think about it so deeply.
Yeah, my point is, let's say we even, you know, accept the fact.
But you know, I also have a certain confidence in my track record.
Sure.
I have 3 decades of being in the public domain, as an activist, as a writer, as an academic, as a journalist, and as someone who intervenes on a range of issues. And it has been consistently non-partisan. Nobody can accuse me of being soft on this one or that one, or being hostile to this or that. I don't carry, even today, even though I critique the Congress party, but I still consider myself a well-wisher of the Congress party. And my anger and frustration is...
If I may ask, who did you vote for the last election?
I, of course, voted for Kapil Sibal in my constituency.
Dear God.
And no, I mean, he also happens to be a dear friend. But that's not why I voted for him. I would never vote for anybody simply because the person is a good friend. But, you know, the choices that were. I have never in my life voted for...
Would you vote for him again?
Depends on who is against him, because there are a lot of sterling qualities in Kapil.
Right.
And I know...
that's interesting for someone who's writing the Modi Nama is accused of being, you know...
No, but I've written very glowing accounts of Kapil Sibal's interventions in Kashmir. He has helped a great deal. Whenever I've approached him, whether as Minister of Education or as Minister of Science and Technology.
So maybe that hurt your credibility.
No, it's nothing to do with my credibility. When he does good, I really feel that I acquire the right to criticize.
Sure.
Only and only when I am the first one to recognize good.
Coming back to, let's say we were to agree that he's been demonized. You think it is unusual for the kind of coverage of the criticism that he got for the riots after something like 2002 were to take place in the current environment when there's this newfound voice that the media has? Just like, do you think Kalmadi was demonized? I mean, would you say Kalmadi was demonized?
It's nothing to do with Narendra Modi. It's to do with corruption of political discourse.
I'm just saying, suppose, like you saw how Kalmadi was like, all the channels, the way they went after him, Rahul Kamal from Headlines Today, he got up and walked off. I mean, they were talking to him like, by the end of it, they were just like slapping him around. Do you think Kalmadi was demonized?
Kalmadi was singled out in a way that he didn't deserve, because everyone knows that the scam that was Commonwealth Games was not his sole creation.
So he was demonized in that sense?
He was singled out and then discarded and then forgotten because they didn't want to keep the issue alive. The issue is now
they means
good
the media.
and buried. The media and those who pull the strings from behind.
I see. Which is who?
It's well known. Who? Those in power.
Who control the media?
Those who control the media. I think this particular government, the Congress government at present, has exceeded all bounds of decency in manipulating the media. And journalists have gone overboard in selling their soul to the Congress party. And believe you me, I mean, I'm going to say something that may not sound very pleasant, but I really think that anyone who's invited to have a cup of tea or a dinner with either Sonia ji or Rahul ji, I think their hormonal balance is damaged for life. They don't get to see life straight anymore. Okay. They can't see things in perspective.
Why do you think that is? They're just so overwhelmed that
I've seen it happening to so many people.
You think it was different during the NDA? You think the NDA was...
They treat them like shit, whether they deserve it or not. Sometimes they deserve it. But I think overall, whether a politician is as corrupt as, say, a Kalmadi or a Nishank, responsible for much of the Uttaranchal tragedy or whatever, you know, all these politicians who have many sins to their credit. But I think there is a certain etiquette that journalists need to follow. TV anchors have completely let go. It's uncouth, it's unacceptable, you don't talk. I mean, sometimes like the anchor is, almost all of them are now outperforming each other.
Do you have a pet peeve? Is there one who...
No, I don't have a pet peeve, and honestly, most of them are friends. I've, you know, enjoyed
I mean,
friendships with them.
One can be critical of
I have written
friends.
open letters critiquing them. You know my open love letters to Arnab Goswami, and then I critiqued Rajdeep Sardesai also on certain issues. It's nothing to do with persons, and I think you have to understand that I can have a warm friendship for a person and yet be clinical in critiquing them. Similarly, I may hate someone, but I'll be very clinical in acknowledging the good in them. And I think that's the first requirement of somebody who picks up a pen. I really think जो कलम है सरस्वती का वास है और उसमें अगर आपके पास ईमानदारी नहीं है then you better not write. For me, I have observed that discipline. Okay. And whenever I've gone wrong, mind you, and I have at times gone wrong, I've been the first one to admit my mistake.
Like when?
So many issues. For example, you know, on dowry issue, what I wrote in 1980, I revised in 5 years later because I said my experience tells me I was wrong then.
What had you written in 80 that you changed
For
your mind
example,
about?
I was the first one to call for a boycott of dowry weddings, and I maintained that for 13 long years. I didn't attend even close family weddings.
And you changed that because?
I changed that because women themselves argued with me saying, "Aap kya baat kar rahi hain? We don't get inheritance rights, and if we don't even take what we get at the time of marriage as dowry, then we are Tuntun Gopal, our brothers get a double share. So how is it good for us?"
Right.
And unless we get those, so therefore I shifted track from anti-dowry plank to
so you think there is still a possibility that
daughters.
you may shift from a pro-Modi stance to an anti-Modi stance?
The moment
if you
I
see
discover facts that put question marks on his credibility. See, I went as a skeptic. I didn't go as an admirer. I'm not even part of that whole Sangh Parivar culture.
Okay, you think you're...
But my skepticism has turned into, at the moment, a conviction that never has in our contemporary history a man been so demonized and wronged for doing all the right things. Even during 2002.
Okay,
His culpability...
but he does kind of, you know, make it easier to put him in that slot with the kind of things he says.
Like? Tell me one example.
Like, for example, I have this here. One, he was misquoted. I won't say, you know, that whole pratikriya, kriya pratikriya. It was a misquoted.
It's misquote.
It's, I know.
And
so that I agree.
And on and on.
But I know that's been misquoted. But the one quote that I have seen, and this is not because I have seen it, is "Hum panch, hamare 25."
See, I have written about it. But I have written about it.
And at so close, I mean, when you already are carrying the baggage of that, I mean, that's not the most brilliant thing to do.
Tell me another phrase that you can find.
No, okay? I'm just saying that one.
No, 1 second. That's the only one. And he said, somebody else, Zafar Sareshwala, when he interviewed him and asked him, why did you say that? He says, wo jo hai phrase, you know, it's like Holi ke samay, बुरा ना मानो होली है, election में एक माहौल होता है when you take liberties. And that was one such example. But then the same Modi tells Zafar Sareshwala, in that interview Zafar gave me, that find another example, either before I became CM or after, of any time I have said anything either against the Quran or the Prophet or against Muslims as a community. He says, you'll never find me one example and I will resign. I'm looking at all his speeches very carefully with a magnifying glass and also translating them now and challenging people to find out where is there.
What do you think of his Fiqhi speech? You remember his Fiqhi speech to Fiqhi women?
I think it was brilliant.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any feminist give a better speech, you know, and I have heard the only other politician who's given better, equally good speeches. Yeah.
Rahul.
Niv.
Just
that's not even a joke.
Okay.
No, that's not even a joke. Poor thing. Please, don't be unfair to him.
Right. Okay.
Don't put expectations that he cannot deliver on.
Okay.
Sharad Joshi, the farmer movement leader of Shetkari Sangatna, his addresses to women farmers, very inspirational.
Just
again.
one thing
I have never heard any other politician
your bit
talk
about
to women in that.
No, what you say that you're not, carrying any agenda to campaign for Modi or, cheerleading his march to progress or whatever it is. It would be, I'm sure people would be able to accept or acknowledge that if you did not defend the indefensible, which you have often done, such as...
Which is?